Hi there. Uh, Moving on in chapter 2, I'm still in section 1, which is on data types. And in this section, we're going to talk about qualitative and quantitative, and also on different levels of measurement. This video is not a substitute for your reading the textbook and doing the problems there. A best practice is to make sure that you're reading the textbook and working the problems as you go through it before you start the homework and the quizzes. All right, so let's take a look at this particular question. And we're talking about fish caught. Okay, so it says the masses in grams of a sample of a species of fish caught in the waters of a region are shown below. And what you see here is a number of decimals: 21.4, 18.3, 20.4, 21.6, 19.6, 21.2, 20.6, 21.1, and 19.5. And the first question says, are the data qualitative or quantitative? Well, when we're talking about data types, we're going to say that we have quantitative and qualitative. And qualitative are often values that can't be placed in numerical categories. They could be something like blue, red, yellow. We can use them to label things. You could imagine a histogram or a bar graph where you had blue, yellow, and red across the bottom, and how many, if those were favorite colors, how many you'd have of each one. So that's a qualitative data type. Another type of qualitative data might be something like a telephone number, right? They're numbers, but they don't really have a value. You can't really place them in order. So those are qualitative. Now, quantitative, these numbers represent something. They represent counts or measurements. So when you're looking at the data in this particular problem, we're talking about how many grams of a fish were caught. That's pretty clear to me that we're counting or measuring. So that is a quantitative measure. Okay. Now the second part of this question is, well, what's the data level? What is the level of measurement? And levels of measurement are really 4. Okay, so we've got 2 of them do with qualitative, and 2 of them deal with quantitative. So again, with my example of colors, favorite colors, we would say that's a nominal level of measurement because it's just a name or a label. It's not more than that. Now we can have a quantitative data that's ordinal, and basically that means that we could place them in a specific order, but they're not counts or measures. Then we have what's called interval and ratio, and I find these two to be a little more gray to me. So I have to really sit and think about it when I've got this kind of a question. So an interval means that it's quantitative data. It's measuring a count or a measure. And the intervals are meaningful. That means the distance between the numbers is significant. It means something. And we have what we call an arbitrary zero. An arbitrary zero. So and an example that I was thinking of for an interval is perhaps we're looking at IQ scores. And if you had someone with a 100 IQ and someone with a 200 IQ, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is twice as smart. However, the intervals between them are meaningful. And though we may have a zero, it's an arbitrary zero, right? You could have a zero intelligence, but it's really just something that it doesn't really mean zero. Now, ratio intervals, they do make sense. The intervals and the ratios make sense. And there is a true zero. And an example that maybe you could use for this is if you had race runners that were running the 100-yard dash or 100-yard measurement. You know, the times there make sense. If someone runs it in 20 seconds versus someone running it in 40 seconds, that 20-second person really did run it twice as fast. And zero, there is a true zero. Zero meaning that you haven't started. So that would be an example of a ratio level of measurement. So back to our question, it's saying, what is the data set's level of measurement here? So it gives us the four choices. Is it nominal, ratio, interval, or ordinal? And I always kind of think that the ratio is the best, and then the interval is a little step down, and then the ordinal gives you a little bit of numbering, and then the nominal is just a label. So if you think of them in that hierarchy, what we have here is we've got everything. We can have a true zero. If we had a zero, that meant there was no fish, no species of that fish caught. And if we catch 20.4 and somebody caught 10.2, that 20.4 is truly twice. So in this example, the ratio is the correct level of measurement. Practice makes perfect. Keep working on these problems. Until next time, see ya.